It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome to a Monday. I think we got it figured out.
You do?
Yeah. Why Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, did not tell Biden that he was in the ICU, that he was sick. The reason the Pentagon didn't, and that's because he just said, well, why should I? He doesn't know who I am anyway. And you're saying, what are you talking about? Well, let's go back here. Have this audio. Let's go back to March of 2021 when Biden was talking about his defense secretary.
All right.
Just want to thank you both, and I want to thank the former general. I keep calling him general, but the guy who runs that outfit over there.
That guy that runs the place.
So Austin has an excuse. Hey, he doesn't know who I am anyway.
He doesn't even know why. If I do call him, he's going to say, remind me who you are. Why do I need to call him? He doesn't know I exist. Well, there's proof of it right there. He didn't know from the beginning who the guy was.
I wonder if they'll use that. Well, he didn't. He doesn't know everybody.
Listen,
he appoints these people, but he doesn't know them.
He
really doesn't know them.
He calls them all the guy or gal that runs the outfit.
Right.
Who's she? She's that gal that runs the outfit over there.
I guess you have to make a little bit of humor out of it because really, I mean,
it's shocking,
absolutely mind-boggling what we learned since we were last on the air.
It is because you started when we came back from the Christmas break last Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Who's it? I think it was the first.
I think it was.
Thing you asked me in the pre-show meeting. You said, "Who's making the calls? Who's making decisions at the White House?"
It might have been the first thing I said when I got on the air.
I think it was because we had. It's where we started our pre-show meeting that just kind of flowed over into the show, and it was based on a number of things. You know, the attack on Iran proxies and everything else, and then a couple of days later on Thursday, we struck in Iraq and took out a militia leader there. They believed that militia leader was responsible for attacks on U.S. personnel. And then we asked the question once again, well, wait a minute, who's making those calls? Then over the weekend, we find out everything about Austin. Austin's been in ICU for days, and no one knew it, apparently.
No one knew that he wasn't defense secretary for 4 days. He was in ICU, including the President of the United States. That's completely and totally unacceptable. If Austin put out that order, he should be relieved from duty. Now, Biden doesn't fire anyone, and I don't believe that Biden, if it's true, that Lloyd Austin, because I don't know who else would say, don't tell anybody I'm in here.
Right.
But since Trump said, I saw the headline, Trump earlier said, I'd fire Lloyd Austin. Well, now Biden can't fire Lloyd Austin because Trump told him to do it.
Yeah, now he can't do it. Right. It would be conceding that Trump is right on something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and you look at that and you just ask, there's so many questions to ask. But it has to be the only set of questions today at the White House. How did this happen? How did this happen? Because Lloyd Austin either lied to a number of people or everybody else is lying.
Well, the thing that got to me when we came back here after Christmas vacation was the number of instances, which, has to be between 50 and 100 instances of U.S. interests being attacked and U.S. soldiers being hurt and U.S. Bases being attacked and the attacks of shipping on the Red Sea, which, we saw some of these shipping companies saying, well, something's got to be done. We can't continue to do this. BP pulled out from going through there, and now is going around Africa.
Yeah.
And so with all these, all of a sudden, they ramped up when we were on vacation, all these attacks back and forth. And then I started seeing in the middle of my vacation, it's like, okay, now he's going to the Virgin Islands. And I thought to myself, I'm like, we've got consistent armed conflict going on with the proxies of Iran, funded by Iran and helped by the Biden administration by ensuring that the funds are there. But still, we're in armed conflict. We're in a war.
Yep.
May not be declared, but we're in a war.
Yep.
And my thought was, Biden's out everywhere. And I just thought to myself, I don't see Biden as being somebody who is sitting down with the generals and saying, what's our strategy going to be every single day? Because I know if I was president of the United States, with what's going on right now, I'd be with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which would include the Secretary of Defense, every single day.
Yes.
What's going on now? What's going on now? Okay, what's the plan? What do you want to do? All right, let's go with this. Let's go with that. I would want active participation. I'd want them in the room. I don't want a bunch of Zoom. I can imagine Biden with the Zoom call with 20 people on the screen. He wouldn't even know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, I went, my God, this thing is escalating over there now, and it's escalating.
Yeah.
One of the reasons Blinken went back over.
Right.
This thing's escalating. We're now, now we're going after militia leaders and other terrorist leaders out there. Remember, when Trump killed Soleimani, that thing was in the news for 3-4 months. The media wouldn't let it go.
Right.
Nothing on this.
Nothing on this.
And I thought to myself, who's actually making the call? And that is a totally legitimate question.
Yep.
And now it became more legitimate after we found out that the defense secretary, nobody knew that he wasn't the defense secretary for 4 days.
Right.
Because he was in ICU.
Right. He's lying or they're lying. And I can't trust anything.
No, I can't. With this administration,
I can't trust anything.
And justifiably so. He lied about Afghanistan.
Right.
Right to the American people's face.
Right.
And the thing is, we didn't find out about it. There was no leaks from the Pentagon. The Pentagon knew what the truth was. There were no leaks. If it was a Trump administration and that same thing happened, imagine if Trump lied to the American public about what the generals told him on some other issue.
Right. Oh,
and
never ending.
The leaks would have been all over the place.
Oh, sure.
There was not one leak. It wasn't until those judges, those generals testified before the Congress, and Republicans got the answers out of them.
Yeah.
They were like, no, we didn't tell him to do that. Here's what we told him to do.
No, this whole thing is insane. This whole thing is it reeks of the problem that we brought up last week coming back. That first question you asked, who's calling the shots? And we didn't know at that point when we were asking that question, when you were asking that question, when we started back, Lloyd Austin was in the hospital then.
Yeah, we didn't know that, yeah. Well, and there are so many now after we are attacked. The United States has probably attacked back, what, again, 5,100 times?
Right.
And so my point is, who's making all those calls? And that was because I'm like, is Biden actually involved in all of this? And does he actually know what's going on? And if he doesn't, who's making the decision?
Okay.
Who's making the decision to kill a militia leader?
Think about this.
Trump took credit for it.
Well, no, that's it.
Yeah,
I mean, Trump would have been
this is my call.
to the podium to have a press conference and a 45-minute speech on it. Remember, al-Baghdadi, he came out of the Situation Room and went straight down to the podium right after it happened. You know, and you and I were asking that off the air when it happened. I think that was Thursday night into Friday morning in a pre-show meeting. It's like, well, wait a minute. Where's the president at the podium saying, even if he doesn't take questions, this is what we have done. This is the person that was responsible for the killing of U.S. service members, or
I'll tell you why.
Because he didn't know.
No, that's a possibility. But what I believe it is they understand they have to keep attacking. But if the president speaks about every victory, then he ticks off his leftist base. Mm-hmm. And he can't do that.
Well, there's that. And the fact that you can't put him in front of an open mic. I mean,
that's
you can't
true.
put him even
that's
with
always
script.
been true. I'm giving you an additional reason.
Exactly right. Yeah, we'll have the whole list of reasons. Right. But no, this is and all of this applies, and it's why you can't trust anything that's going on. Because think about that. Our enemy knows that Joe Biden's not capable. Our enemy finds out that our defense secretary is in ICU. What I'm saying is there's motivation to keep that hidden.
Yeah, but what does this do now?
Well,
it shows
it wrecks it, but that's the incompetence that would come up with such a horrible plan. I mean, there's no way you can keep that from the enemy, and you start with having a capable commander-in-chief, but
right. You
simply
say Lloyd Austin is in the hospital. We're dealing with
exactly.
This is what's happening here.
Right.
You show confidence. You show confidence in your military leadership. You don't sit there and say, "Oh, if Lloyd Austin is sinking, I better hide this because if I don't hide this, people will think that Biden is in charge, and we can't have that."
Well, but under my little, question mark / possible theory, it wasn't Lloyd Austin's plan. That's the problem with the incompetence under Joe Biden. It's all the way to the bone.
Well, then it would be what you're saying is Biden knew and they lied.
Exactly.
Look, any possibility, we can sit back and we can generalize here because this administration has lied to the American public.
Because I don't know what the truth is.
When we're at war in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And once that lie happened, and we can give you all the other successions of lies, but we're talking here about armed conflict, a war in Afghanistan, and the fact that he lied to the American public on that. I'm trying to have political lies happen. Yeah, but this lie was straight to the face of the American public about what he said his generals told him, and that was a lie. Well, after that, I can question everything that this president says, and we have, especially the things that don't make any sense at all, and this makes zero sense.
Yeah, right.
In what universe does this make sense?
None.
And even the liberal media is reporting the fact that everybody seems lost. They don't know where to go on this. How?
Because it was this was not a wealth. Either nobody is in charge, and nobody is competent here, and I'm throwing that out as a possibility. I'm not saying it isn't the case. That could well be the case. Or they're running with a line. They're running with a guy in this. Keep in mind, until the case is otherwise, he actually is the commander-in-chief. That's the scary part. So if he says something, and this is going to be the line that we sell everybody, then you got to go with it because he's the boss. It sounds like a very...
These are simple things, though, that should never be.
It
whatever
sounds
the reason.
like because and that's my point. It sounds like a plan hatched out of complete incompetence. Tell me how this happens. Your defense secretary is in the ICU, and that's not an immediate phone call to the commander-in-chief. Here's what's going on, and here's what we expect. We'll update you multiple times a day on his status, and also here is who is filling in for him in the meantime.
Yeah, I don't remember anything in covering politics as long as I have, over 40 years, paying attention for over 50. I've never heard anything like this.
I haven't.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
We've heard all about the obesity epidemic in this country, with upwards of 60% of people overweight, but it's not just people, it's our pets.
Yes, we're seeing the same trend. 30 to 40% of animals are overweight, and 20% or so are in that obese category.
Dr. Susan Nelson, the veterinarian at Kansas State University, and she says there's definitely a correlation here between more of us being overweight and our pets.
Yeah, my personal belief, yes, there's a big connection. Kind of just like us, there's a lot of palatable foods out there, and fat usually makes them more palatable, and so we like to eat them. Less exercise. We just have less time for exercise, so the dogs don't get to go out for the walks as often with their owners, and so they're laying around the house watching TV while the owners are too, and usually snacking.
And our pets gradually become too fat, which Dr. Nelson says can bring on all kinds of problems and cut the lifespan of our pets. She says get your pet into the vet's office regularly. They'll help you with tips on diet and exercise for your pet, of course. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Shop at Iowa80.com for the best selection of everything for your truck. Bumpers, fenders, toolboxes, lights, interior, and more. Iowa80.com, your trucking accessories superstore.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is really interesting. There's something wrong with the previous U.S. job reports. The government quietly erased 439,000 jobs through November of 2023. A closer look at the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows this means its initial jobs results were inflated by 439,000 positions, and the job market is not as healthy as the government suggests. Since the government wiped out 439,000 jobs after the fact, the total percentage of jobs created by the government last year is even higher. Increased government hiring has been driving the job numbers even higher. This matters because U.S. job reports move the markets and U.S. Treasury yields. Plus, they're a significant factor in the Federal Reserve's decision about the path of interest rate hikes and cuts, and this affects U.S. consumers' pocketbooks. It's time to stop trading off the payroll data, tweeted David Rosenberg, founder of Rosenberg Research Associates. By his calculations, he said the downward revisions came to an epic 443,000, adding more than 40% of the payroll growth in 2023 came from the fairy tale bird death model the BLS uses to guesstimate its job reports. Again, the government sector in December ranked high in job creation. It created 52,000 jobs in the final month of 2023. My interesting thing is they said secretly did it. You're telling me it wasn't through the normal, because, on the unemployment, they'll update it?
Right.
You're saying this is outside the normal updates?
That's the question that I initially had, too, because the updates are basically scheduled. You get an update every time you get an unemployment report. You get an update from the previous report that was issued. There's a revision that's put out. And it's a total of 3 reports. Initial report, revision, and final report typically is what we see. But if they're saying, if the report is saying, well, they quietly did this, well, what do you mean? Are you saying they did it in the revisions and didn't promote it? Because that might happen with any given revision. Or are you saying they did it outside of the revisions?
Right. And I don't know. They don't explain
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. That will be interesting, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were doing it outside the revision.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, it was sad to hear about the death of actress Cindy Morgan.
Yeah.
Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Lacy underalls. You can't even say it without laughing.
Yeah.
You can't even say it. Oh. I remember when they were doing, and I forgot who did it, basically the biography of Caddyshack, and she was really prominent, in that documentary on it.
Right, yeah.
It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. Like, for example, you look at Animal House, the first cut of it, the studio looked at it and said, are you people out of your mind? Same thing with Caddyshack.
Yeah.
They, when they had it done, I mean, it was just the studio looked and go, what the hell? This doesn't even make sense. And so it was after the first viewing of it, from basically the first cut that they looked at, when they actually got more money to add in the gopher. Gopher was not originally a part of Caddyshack, and they did that later on. But you just think about it, and I think about her. I can't even think of the line when she's walking down with Danny Noonan, and he's trying to get the judge, to give him a scholarship, and he keeps failing.
Yeah.
And she keeps walking by with some kind of smart butt comment.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Call me when you have no class. Dangerfield. I mean, it was just classic Dangerfield lines, too. Mm-hmm. That's basically just let Rodney do what he does. And Ted Knight, playing the straight guy, Great movie. Great movie. Wow. That movie's 44 years now, almost 44 years old.
Yeah, I think she was 69.
Yeah. Yeah, Cindy Morgan.
And it's funny because they say she's known for Caddyshack and was it Tron?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
was she known for Tron, really?
Yeah, no, she was known for Caddyshack.
No, it's Caddyshack.
She was in Tron, but they had all the the bodysuits and makeup and all that stuff on. It was like, no. Everybody knows her. Come on, stop it. She was known for Caddyshack.
Yeah.
I don't think she did any type of documentary on Tron.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, it just makes you think of Caddyshack, and as long as you're thinking of Caddyshack, you can get through all the incredibly insane stuff going on in our society.
Yeah, right. Well, they don't make the silly comedy movies like they used to anymore. Hollywood won't do it. Stand-up comedians have been complaining about this for a few years now, that Hollywood has just taken this turn. You don't do a comedy movie for the sake of comedy. Because the thing is about comedy is eventually you're going to offend someone or everyone. Letterman said it years ago. Think about that. Where Letterman is now and what he said back when he was doing stand-up and late-night television. He said, look, if you're afraid of being offended, get in line. Eventually, I'm going to offend everyone. And it was a serious point in that that's what comedy does. But it's the absurdity. I mean, my gosh, if you look at Blazing Saddles and you didn't look at it as a comedy, it would be the most offensive, one of the most offensive movies ever. Except for the comedy lies in the absurdity of it all, of that mindset. And if you didn't compartmentalize that, and people knew how to do it back then.
Well, either it offends everybody, and if you're not offended by it, it's because you understand the context of it.
Right. Right.
It's like Married with Children.
Mm-hmm.
Could you have a Married with Children today? Not Married with Children. Could All in the Family. Married with Children.
Neither one of them, actually. You couldn't have either one.
You couldn't have either one.
You couldn't have either one. You know, I mean, you just couldn't. There's no way.
But when you think, because when I watch I'll see Married with Children.
Yeah.
And it's like there's part of me that will laugh because Al Bundy was hilarious.
Yeah.
What a great character.
Right.
And probably some of the best people older people I knew growing up were like Al Bundy. Everything sucked, but they survived.
Yeah, right.
And everything was a joke, and that's how they survived.
Right.
And there was a certain fascination in people like that when I was a younger kid viewing that. I actually said, well, that's a really healthy life, because they're complaining about everything, but they're doing it, with that sarcastic,
right.
They're not really saying everything is horrible. And he said he got it from his uncle.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, that's where Al, or whatever his name is, Ed O'Neill, got it from.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really doing my uncle when I went in. He said everybody was playing it one way, and I said, well, why not play it that just, your wife's left, whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's like everything is whatever,
right?
Whatever.
Yeah. We also didn't get a chance. It happened while we were out on our Christmas break, but the death of Tommy Smothers.
Oh, man.
Smothers Brothers. I mean, well, first of all, they were really good musicians.
Yeah, they were.
And that kind of took a back seat in a way, to the music, because it was all the comedy was surrounding, whatever song or whatever performance they were doing. But Tommy Smothers, have you ever seen the clip of him walking out as Johnny Carson?
No.
He nailed it. Because in those years, he looked like Johnny. He was the same size. There was a still shot that came out after he passed. It was just in the whole Google, virtual world of still shots of Tommy Smothers. And he was at an event, and they took a shot of him. I'm like, that's not Tommy Smothers. That's Johnny Carson. I knew it was Tommy Smothers, but it was like, wow. And then I thought, wait a minute. Didn't he do that on Carson? He did. So his brother came out, and then Johnny's like, well, where's Tommy? He goes, well, Tommy wants to come out and, pay special tribute. It was their last appearance on the Tonight Show while Johnny was hosting.
Oh, I should be able to find it then.
Yeah. Okay. And it's just unreal. In fact, it's on the official Johnny Carson YouTube channel. And it's just he comes out. Now, he doesn't do the vocal impression because his voice is very different than Johnny's. But he looked just like him.
And did he do the mannerisms?
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. It was, and he did it kind of throughout the entire visit there, even when they sat down. And then they did a routine after that, and it was just amazing. Their father was Major Thomas Smothers, the second Thomas Smothers Jr., and died in a Japanese prison camp in World War II when Tommy would have been about 8 years old. Wow. And you think about that. I mean, they're essentially their mom from that point on raised them, and they, in fact, they brought her sometimes to the show when they were on the air, their show. She was in the audience a couple of times. And it was, I mean, they were so funny, but you think about what that life would have been like, and they didn't really talk about it much. But having suffered the loss of their father, and it was a really horrific loss too, the way he died. And so it was, that it was just one of those things that of our generation, the Smothers Brothers were cutting edge. In fact, they got fired because of it, not canceled. The network didn't cancel them. They fired them. And they were doing, I mean, by today's standards, what they did was tame.
Tame, yeah. Very tame.
You know?
You know, it's interesting that when you're just talking about it, that I'm fascinated. I got to watch because I just was doing stuff around the house, a little bit cold. I can't golf because of my knee.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time around the house, and I will say watched a lot more television than I normally watched.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught myself one night just going to Antenna TV, where they're playing, you know, and then on my LG channels, you know, one of my streaming services, there's the Johnny Carson channel.
Yeah. Yep.
Where Johnny Carson old shows are running 24/7.
Yep.
And I just thought, you know, you look at that talk shows are immediate. You know, they catch they capture the present.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, and I haven't fully thought this out yet, but I will say this, that there's a kind of comfort. Now, for me, it goes back to my probably senior year in high school, you know, really when Carson was becoming mega popular.
Right, yeah.
And I would stay up on the East Coast till like 11:45 because at 11:30 he'd come on for the monologue, then you go to sleep.
Right.
But you would have to catch the monologue.
Yeah.
And it's funny that when I turned it on, I was over vacation, and I watched like 2 or 3 shows. Just like got nothing to do. I'm like, there's a certain comfort in this.
No, it was.
There's a certain
had its
nostalgia or whatever.
Well, it was the nostalgia, but
not even nostalgia. No, it was even more than that.
The show itself had a certain cadence to it that was perfect for late night. If you look at what Fallon does, Fallon's like a hyperactive child. And you can take that good or bad, but he is. He's like a hyperactive kid.
No, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Carson,
and it isn't necessarily an insult. It's just the style that he has.
Just the way he conducts his comedy,
or it could necessarily be an insult.
Yeah, it might be. You know, whatever. But but Carson had a more subdued, especially after the monologue. But that was the idea. Look, you know, kids have gone to bed. Everything's all right now. You know, sit down and take in some comedy. When it was 90 minutes. I used to make an effort to, especially if Rich Little or somebody was on, I loved impressionists, and I used to wait up because if we were quiet, my dad would leave our bedroom door open. So if I couldn't see the TV from the room I was in, I could at least hear it. And I would stay up until midnight. I would stay awake, or as long as my dad had it on. And at one point, we were in a house on Laughlin Air Force Base, actually. And my bedroom door, you could look around the corner, and you could see the TV. It was right there. And I could sit there, and if I was quiet, I could watch it. Or I could see it in the reflection of my window. And those are the things that I remember as a kid. You know, it was just, for me, it was everything, because I just wanted, comedy, you know, and I will always love Carson.
You know what I sense, and this is just off the top of my head, when I watch it, he had a relaxing style, and Ed sitting there just laughing was like two people just joking around.
Right.
It wasn't like you were watching a show.
Right. They were hanging out.
They were just hanging out.
Yeah, kind of just sitting around a lounge, you know? Yeah.
And then that went right into MASH with the swamp, and that became...
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you wanted to be.
Exactly, right.
Can I buy a swamp?
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. This is really interesting now, because we had mentioned the Golden Globes very briefly. But this from Deadline, Golden Globes security ramps up amid international tensions and creating limo log jams. You know, you and I talked about the DNC this year in Chicago. The pro-Palestinian movement's going to be all over that.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be all over that. And you think about it, that, you know, things were slowed up at the Golden Globes. What security are they worried about right now? I mean, of course, possibility of terrorism because that's a high-profile thing. But what they're really worried about in liberal cities is the pro-Palestinian protests that are going on.
Yep. Because there's no way there really is no way to control it. And it is the eternal outrage that's going on. And right now the focus is anti-Israel, anti-Jew, pro-Hamas. It doesn't get more radical than that.
No, it really doesn't.
And I know if you're a liberal leader in one of these liberal cities, I don't know what you do. Quit? Leave? I don't know what you do. There's really no way to control that kind of radical behavior.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.